So the next one I talk about is something that we're calling, although the name is still evolving, but I'm feeling like I like this name a lot. We're calling it transparent enrollment. And this was actually invented by our friend Patrick from the AAF. When I started off these demos, I talked about going through enrollment flow with Cadre, and that's very typical for a lot of organizations we work with. In particular, CILogon, we got our start working with the physicists, the astrophysicists, sort of the harder STEM side of the house. And those types of projects tend to be very well organized in terms of who's a member of the collaboration or organization, who's not. Typical example, if your campus puts in a couple $1 million to help build the telescope, then your campus physicists and astrophysicists are allowed to access the telescope data. It's pretty straightforward.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, it's fair enough. So you kind of know who's part of the community and who's not. And it makes sense in that situation to go ahead and say to them, here's an enrollment flow. Let's get you onboarded with your federated identity, and then we'll start managing you. This is a little bit different, and it came up because LDaCA in particular has a much softer notion of what it means to be a member of the community, what that really is about.
So LDaCA is the Language Data Commons of Australia. So more in the social science space, a much larger network of users, and oftentimes they don't necessarily know who they are.
Exactly. And so Patrick had this brilliant idea that, well, since the CILogon OAuth 2 server is managing this authentication flow, and it knows who the user is after the user is authenticated, and it knows which service they're going to. Is it an LDaCA service? Is it a Cadre service? Is it a Biocommon service? We know that information. Then why can't the OAuth 2 server check and see if the user's already registered, and then silently or transparently register them if they're not? The idea being that we can have a very lightweight way to begin to build up the community, get these federated identities into CILogon, into co-managed, so that then we can manage them later on for managing access to maybe different sets of data. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring up a page, a little demo page. So this little page represents some organization portal. We're not going to, it could be LDaCA, but it's just some research organization portal, a service, or other application. And the idea is the user wants to come here, wants to log in, wants to get access maybe to some piece of data that doesn't have very restrictive access control. And so the user can go ahead and click the login button. And before I do that, actually, sorry, I forgot to set this up. I'm going to log into the registry test.LDaCA. I'm already logged in. So here's LDaCA's test, and I look at my population. And there's some people in here, but you'll notice if you read down the names, there's no Scott Koranda.
Definitely not.
Definitely not. But if I go here to this portal and I click login, and then I log in again with my U of I identity, and the user thinks they're just doing a login with a federated identity, they're going through the flow, and now they're going to get access to the application. And this application is just showing you some asserted information. It's not very interesting. Normally, it would be some application that has some data in it that the user wants to get to. So from the user's experience, it just logged in. Now they have access to data. But what's happened is we have transparently, if I come back here and I refresh, you'll now see that there's a Scott Koranda listed as being enrolled in LDaCA. And so we've been able to collect the federated identity details about this user, and now we can begin to manage it. So maybe this user then will click on a piece of data that requires special permission, and they have to be put into a special group. And so they're going to maybe go to REMS, or they're going to fill out a request for that. We can then use that information to manage their record and then give them access to that because we've already enrolled them. We don't have to make them go through a separate enrollment step. So this is what we're calling transparent enrollment, and I think it's going to be very powerful.